LeBron James finishing third with 17%. And last year's winner of this vote, Anthony Davis, was just listed as receiving some votes. Stephen A., did they get it right, Karl-Anthony Towns?
No, they did not. And I love Karl-Anthony Towns. He's a beautiful player, beautiful person, incredibly bright future. But the game has changed. And I understand why anybody would look at Karl-Anthony Towns and consider, because he's not just an inside back-to-the-back player. Most of the time, he's facing the basket. He can hit perimeter shots. He can even hit threes from time to time. Let's be clear about that. He shot 34% from the three-point line last year. But he's no Steph Curry. Not in today's game. Steph Curry and Kevin Durant would be two players that I would instantly take before him, because when I look at a Steph Curry and I look at a Kevin Durant, I see guys who can pull up from 30 who don't need someone else to handle the ball for them before they get the ball. That's not to say Karl-Anthony Towns can't handle the ball, but he's essentially a power forward, who can play center, and you're going to have a point guard, whether it's Ricky Rubio or somebody else, running the offense, etc. Steph Curry is the first person that I would go to, because he shot 50% from the field, 45% from three-point range. He handles the ball a lot of the time because he's the point guard on the Golden State Warrior, and he is the greatest marksman I have ever seen in the history of basketball. When you combine that with the way that the game is played in this day and age, Karl-Anthony Towns is going to be big time. He is going to be a superstar in this league someday. I have no doubt in my mind. But this is a guard's game in this day and age. And because of those rule changes, I'm rolling with Steph Curry.
Incorrect. They got it right, Stephen A. Smith. Karl-Anthony Towns, as I said, is the guy who's eventually maybe going to take over from LeBron, because even LeBron in decline can keep doing this for as long as he wants, it seems, maybe 3 or 4 years from now. Karl-Anthony Towns, when you're starting a team, you got to look at age. If you're not good, and maybe like the answer is LeBron, because he's so great that just having him means you're in a running for a championship for the next 3 to 4 years. But if it's not LeBron, and we're going to take age into consideration, Steph is pushing 30, so is KD. He's getting close. If you want to go with a guard, you go with Kyrie Irving, the second best player in those finals just last year. And he's 24 years old. So Kyrie would be the choice at guard. If you don't want Karl-Anthony Towns, if you don't want Karl-Anthony Towns, then you go with Anthony Davis, although his injury history gives me pause. And I'll give you another name. Kristaps Porzingis, who's 7'3" and only 21 years old, can take bigs off the dribble, can play with his back to the basket, can defend the perimeter, can defend the interior. You're speaking about potential. And can shoot.
You're speaking about potential.
Yes, of course.
Hold on, calm down. This is basketball, baby. Hold on. The fact of the matter is you're speaking about potential. I'm not disputing that. I'm saying at this moment, based on what we have seen, where would you go? And I'm saying to you, I got a dude in Steph Curry, who is the greatest marksman we've ever seen, who is a point guard who primarily has the ball in his hands. The combination of those two ingredients combined with today's game, to me, there's no question. And the closest thing to him is Kevin Durant, because at 6'10" with a 7'6" wingspan.
Hold on. So you're going with two guys who 30 is coming up pretty soon, and neither one of them really have alpha personalities to begin with, which is why they've teamed up to try to get over the LeBron hump.
I think Steph Curry has an alpha personality.
He hasn't shown it in the finals?
Well, excuse me. I think he has an alpha personality. He wasn't 100% healthy last NBA Finals. He didn't play stellar, but don't tell me he doesn't have an alpha personality. Alpha personality isn't defined by just the finals. It's a bevy of big moments. Hold on. It's a bevy of big moments. Do you show up? There have been times when LeBron didn't show up. We're not going to deny that he's not an alpha personality now.
And he evolved. If you are the back-to-back league MVP with back-to-back substandard finals appearances, what do you have to say about that? And you didn't neglected to mention the best thing about Steph, not just that he's a marksman, but he spaces the floor differently than everyone else.
Another reason that helps me. Thank you very much. I appreciate you helping my point out, because you usually do. You usually do.
You take a 30-year-old over a 20-year-old?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We need to revisit this. This is very...
I actually don't. He closed it because he closed it agreeing with me.
That's what he did.
That's
what he did. He did close it.
All right. Charles Barkley saying Kevin Durant isn't a villain, but he's making himself one, and advises the new Warriors star to shut up and stop talking about his old Thunder team. Barkley said this at a TNT luncheon, quote, "He's made himself a villain by taking all these shots at Oklahoma City for no reason. There's no reason for that. He left. He's happy. Shut up." When you're taking shots at Russell and those guys, that's not necessary. So Barkley isn't a fan of Durant's move in the first place and still thinks the Warriors are too reliant on jumpers and the lack of a dominant big man. Is he right?
He is right. He is right about what he said about Oklahoma City. I've got, obviously, sources in Oklahoma City who feel the same way. Matter of fact, I had one individual who obviously will remain nameless, Max, who asked me, Stephen A., why can't this kid keep his mouth shut about us? Just move on. We love the kid, but damn. That's what they said, straight from Oklahoma City. And they're right. And I think that the thing that Barkley missed in explaining all of this is what makes Kevin Durant look so bad. Assuming it's true, I haven't spoken to him, I don't know. But assuming it's true, Russell Westbrook said he found out about Kevin Durant leaving like the rest of us did. Now, this is the same Kevin Durant that cussed out the media one day. This is the same Kevin Durant that cussed out Mark Cuban, called him an idiot the next, in favor of Russell Westbrook coming to his friends to defense, calling him a little brother, etc., etc. And you don't have the decency to go to that man and say, look, man, I'm leaving, here's why. He had to find out like the rest of us. And then every little thing that you say, you're praising Golden State, but you are smart, because Kevin Durant is a smart young man. He's smart, he's decent at his core, he's a good person, his mama's wonderful, his brother's wonderful, the people that he does business with, business managers and others, these are all great, great people that he's surrounded by. And he is a fantastic guy. He really, really is. When you see remarks that he says, Max, and he's snapping at me or he's snapping at members of the media, that's not him. That's not who that's not who this guy is. He's a good dude. The problem is he ain't comfortable with this decision because he mishandled it. He ain't comfortable with this decision. He's comfortable being in Golden State because that's where he ultimately wanted to be. But he knows how slick this looked. Playing in the Western Conference Finals, knowing cats were recruiting you, vibing with them, not winning after being up 3-1, and then conveniently going to the team that beat you. This looks really, really bad. You would think that because of how bad it looked, you would have the common sense to make sure that you say absolutely nothing that could be remotely interpreted as a shot at Oklahoma City, its culture, your former teammate in Russell Westbrook. Thank God Russell Westbrook is as strong as he is, that intestinal fortitude, that pit bull that he is on the basketball court, the dude that knows how to dismiss everything off the court. Thank God he is that way, because if he wasn't, it is shocking to me that Kevin Durant appears to have never taken the time to sit back and say, damn, how would Russell feel if I said this? How would that come across? Because everybody and their mother looks at Russell Westbrook as primarily the reason why Kevin Durant left. And knowing that and having no sensitivity to it is just the opposite, the antithesis of everything most of us in the NBA community know Kevin Durant to be, because he's incredibly thoughtful. It makes no sense. And so I appreciate where Barkley is coming from in terms of those comments, because somebody has to say something to Kevin Durant to say, just chill, because you really, really left Russell Westbrook hanging. And it's not just because you left. It looked like you left because of him. And whether that's true or not, I don't know if Russell Westbrook deserved that. And I just think that needs to be said.
There's a lot here. Before I say anything, I want to make something very clear off the top. Charles Barkley is my favorite personality in media, period. Russell Westbrook is my favorite NBA player to watch, okay? I want to make that clear. Barkley here is being hypocritical. It's not that he's entirely wrong, though he's not entirely right either. I'm going to get to that in a second. But Barkley is a guy, the reason he was so great to watch as a player wasn't just his Hall of Fame ability, but he would always say what's on his mind. Barkley never bit his tongue. When did Barkley bite his tongue? And there wasn't nearly as much media back then, period, nor even new kinds of media. Forget about like the number of media members following a team. There wasn't social media. So when you look at Kevin Durant, should he be more thoughtful about what he says about Westbrook and the Oklahoma City Thunder? Yes, clearly. Barkley's right about that. But why is he still talking about them? He's still talking about them because wherever he turns, there's a camera and a microphone in his face, a phone or whatever it is, in his face, asking him questions about Durant and the Thunder to try to bait him into a clickbait, to turn him into some clickbait online, or so we could talk about him on TV. And because his attitude, especially nowadays, is, and he said it recently, look, no matter what I say, people are going to twist it around, take it out of context either, so I'm just going to say what's on my mind. Mistake, probably. Because when people are constantly asking you questions about why you left, you're going to have to start to tell them, even if you don't mean to take shots. It's going to come off that way. After all, if you liked Westbrook especially and that team as much as you like Steph and these guys, you'd have stayed. I'm sure Kevin Durant wished that look, Westbrook did not play well down the stretch in those games late in that Western Conference Finals. Neither did Durant. And Stephen A., I know your point as well. Westbrook does that a lot. So he's still within character. Well, okay, but maybe you don't want to play with a guy like that who's going to do that late in playoff games a lot, monopolize the ball, and not play well. And again, Westbrook, my favorite player to watch. I love his aggression and his desire to win. But Durant's maybe looking at that going, oh, if only we would have beaten Golden State, whether or not they won the title. If only we would have beaten Golden State, then I don't get killed for going to Golden State, because that's really the way I want to play. And every time he says, that's the way I want to play, that's a shot at Westbrook and the Thunder. And it is. There's no getting around that. He's preferring A to B, right? He thinks A is better than B. He thinks the players there are better to play with. That's why he made the move. But every time he says that, it's going to be a shot at Westbrook. So is Barkley's general message right? Watch your mouth, basically, when you talk about these guys. Consider your answers more carefully. Yes, he's right basically about that. On the other hand, he is being hypocritical because he did not have to deal with all of this. And and even not dealing with all of this, when did Barkley bite his tongue?
Well, listen, you're looking at whether or not he bit his tongue, but you're not taking into account the circumstances. Charles Barkley was never up 3-1 in a conference finals, blows the lead, and then turns around and joins the team that beat him. Charles Barkley never put himself in a position where people were questioning how badly did you really want to win because of where you ended up going. Fair or not, those are the things.
True.
Hold on. That is absolutely true.
He went from Phoenix, couldn't get by Houston. A year and a half later, he's in Houston.
No, a year and a half later, not the next month.
Oh.
I'm saying to you that's what happened.
In between?
That's a really big deal, Max. It's a really big deal, a year apart as opposed to a month apart.
But
what
you
are
know
you
what,
talking
Stephen
about?
A?
That's
you know
a
what,
very
Stephen
big deal.
So it's Durant's bad luck that he happened to play those guys in the conference finals and his contract was up at the same time?
Wait a minute. The point that I'm trying to make to you is that they later admitted that he had been being pursued all year long. You got to remember, you got to connect the dots here, Max. Again, I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to sit up there and call Durant. I'm not trying to attach any level of credibility to that. I'm just saying, in the eyes of cynics, those are the kind of questions folks were asking themselves throughout the offseason. I'm not doing that. I have people emailing, people calling into my radio show, walking up to me on the streets, saying these things. Of course, I would never accuse something like that of Kevin Durant because I think he's a high-character young man. I'm simply saying we never saw anything like that before.
Listen,
hold on. We've never seen a guy up 3-1 be completely something other than himself in a Game 6, be reluctant with aggression in Game 7, and then turn around and go to the team that beat you. And when something like that happens, that's not a Charles Barkley. The other thing about the hypocrisy as it pertains to Charles Barkley demanded a trade out of Philadelphia. He said why? While he was there, he told the city of Philadelphia to kick rocks. I'm not happy here. I want out. They moved him to Phoenix. They moved him to Phoenix. Wait a minute. That's not hypocritical. He didn't sit in Philly smiling in everybody's face, talking about, I love it here. I love you guys. This guy's my brother. That guy my brother. And then skip town like a thief in the night and go to Phoenix. He was straight up about it. Kevin Durant wasn't. That's a fact.
Charles Barkley has a much more alpha personality than Kevin Durant. As I said, it's one of the reasons he's my favorite guy. Barkley's my favorite guy in media. I don't see that in Kevin Durant's future. And when you start talking like this, I listen very carefully because Stephen A. Smith, boys and girls, is privy to information that no one else is. Not as much information from as many different sources. So sometimes you'll phrase things in such a way you don't want to give away something. You're not allowed to say something.
That's
but
fair.
It helps inform your opinion. And I listen very carefully. What I would say about Durant leaving, though, whatever information you have, this is the information this is what I surmise from it. Kevin Durant just wants to play basketball a certain way. His talent elevates him to the point where he's being compared to LeBron James and Larry Bird at the position, and he's one of the greatest players ever at the position. And so people expect a certain kind of behavior from him that's just not him.
But Max,
and then everyone asks him about it.
You're talking about the behavior. Max, I think it was the weakest decision I've ever seen by a superstar for him to go to Golden State because they just beat him. But it's his life. He's allowed to do what he wants.
Right.
Barkley is alluding to the competitive fervor, making sure that there's some level of parity. You got one of the things we'll get into in the days ahead leading into the season is what level of culpability, if any at all, LeBron has in Kevin Durant ultimately deciding to go to Golden State. We'll talk about all of those things, but understand what we're talking about here. Look at the backdrop that I just laid out for you. Look at the questions. Look at how Russell Westbrook has been left holding the bag, and we're lucky he's strong enough to look at the media and say, I'm not going to be answering these questions. I've said enough. He ain't here. I'm moving on. Boom. We respect what Russell Westbrook is doing to handle it. But what happened to the big brother, who's one of the top 3 players in this world, who is a superstar personified and a really, really, really good person, I might add? What happened to that dude who's done nothing but show sensitivity throughout his career, particularly to his friends, forgetting that when it comes to Russell Westbrook and an Oklahoma City organization that he was with for 9 years? That dude,
remember this about Durant.
That dude left. That's a problem. That's a problem.
Some guys like Brandon Marshall, he's in Chicago, he's defending Jay Cutler. Not that there's any similarity between Cutler and Westbrook, just that they're both teammates of the other guy. Durant is pro-teammate. If someone attacks his teammates, he's going to defend them. That doesn't mean he would have chosen that teammate. That just means that's the teammate he wound up with. The first time he got to choose his teammates, the first time in his career, he chose these guys. He does need to be more considerate about the way he answers questions. Barkley is right about that.
Stephen A., we have to go to break, but I have one question for you because I'm a little confused. So regardless of how you feel about the move, how he handled it in terms of not telling Westbrook directly, if that's true, we all agree that that's weak. But the fact that he continues to talk about Oklahoma, do you think that's calculated or he's naive to the fact when he mentions Golden State that it's a shot at Oklahoma? That's where I'm lost, why he continues to speak about them.
I don't think it's calculated, but I don't think he's naive either. I think the appropriate word is insensitive. You left them. But more importantly,